Welcome to Keep Hustling, where we are going past the why to get to the how. I'm your host, the always hustling Aaron Gordon, aka NY Risk Advisor, aka Mr. Hashtag Keep Hustling. And in this podcast, we will be diving deep into the professional and personal successes of our guests to find out how they hustled through the most difficult times in their life and their development to achieve the success they've gotten to today. So buckle up for what hopes to be an amazing ride. And of course, now and always, keep hustling. Welcome to Keep Hustling with my guest, Daniel Seong. Thank you, Daniel, for being on the show.
Well, thank you, and truly honored and inspired that the world needs to hear more of Aaron Gordon, my friend. So I was so happy to hear that you started the podcast.
I appreciate it. And, obviously, the thing we're here to talk about and what I try to live my life by, which you obviously inspire every day, is as the patriarch of the Song Life family and watching you and learning from you is everybody has a unique part of their Keep Hustling story and how they've hustled and how they've gotten through challenges, because nobody's life is challenge free. And I think that there's a lot that we can all learn from each other. And obviously that's why you're here, because you're the man. So why don't we start with, what do we need to know about Daniel Seong before Song Life, before the person who's sitting here in 2023? Take us back a little bit to the most pivotal moments in your upbringing or childhood that led you to where you are today.
Yeah. Great question. I think when we look back, there's a lot of pivotal key moments in our life that really kind of changed the path. Obviously, one was my dad bringing us here to the States in 1984, and he did that because he wanted a better life for his kids. The other one, was really when I decided I remember I was a junior or senior in high school, and being Korean, I was almost a little bit of an outcast because I wasn't good at math. I didn't do Taekwondo. I didn't play any instruments. Like I was not smart, and people, excuse me, people laugh when I say that, but it's so true because growing up in the 80s and the 90s, I mean, if you're Korean, you were very expected to be a certain way. I didn't get into UCLA, and that's when I decided to go into the Marine Corps. And looking back at it now, that's absolutely one of the best decisions of my life because it bought me a lot of time. It bought me 4 years. I went to school, I got to travel the world a little, and the Marines showed me what hard work and discipline looked like, what it physically looked like. So that was great. And then that's how I met Christina, my wife. And then we dated and then we got married after a few years. And then, once we got married, going through, raising the kids, struggling financially, those were those were blessings. Aaron, I'm sorry, man. I just had this cough. So my apologies for that. But I have
It's all good. It's all good.
the
This is real life.
struggles were really the blessings when I look back at it. And it has 100% helped me to shape kind of the person and the father and husband that I am today.
I don't know if you know this. First of all, I should have led with this, but thank you on behalf of all of us and all Americans for your service. As I've told you before, that service makes you a better man than I am. So I really appreciate it on behalf of my family and everyone. Really, thank you for that. But I don't know if you know this, but I am the child of an immigrant. My mother came here when she was a very young child on a boat from a displaced persons camp in
Yeah.
Italy.
Yeah.
And I've always wondered, and I guess this is a great question for you of all people, and that is, you said that a pivotal moment was when you came to America and your father made the decision to bring you to America. Has that ever, as you've built a career, built a life, do you ever feel any sort of pressure? Like my parents took the leap. My father took the leap to bring me here, and therefore I have to work harder, be successful. I know you mentioned the thing about, schooling and college, but like, does that weigh on you? Not necessarily in a negative way, but just like, I have to make this work because of the sacrifice that the people made before me.
Yeah. Great point. I don't think anybody has ever asked me that, but that is something that I think about, dream about, and is very passionate about. Aaron, could you imagine picking up right now, taking your 5 kids and your wife and going to a completely different country where you don't even know the language? and from day one, I mean, your kids have to eat. So trying to figure out, because I mean, I know so many people where they were doctors, they were attorneys, they were, and come here and now they work at a restaurant.
That's the crazy part. The crazy part is more than, as you said, you have a family, but it's like you had people whose lives, they were in the middle of their life. It wasn't
Yeah,
like, oh, an 18-year-old guy or gal who picks up and chases a better. He took a family and, as you said, probably went from a career where he was to like, I'll do anything. I will working in a restaurant, probably washing dishes,
it's nuts.
not working in a restaurant. Like, you know,
And I'll tell you right now, if you asked me to do that right now, I wouldn't do it. It's too scary not to know the language, right? So, and my dad, man, he was, I learned what hard work was, originally from him. But like he would go out 4 a.m. every morning. He first started out in the San Diego swap meet selling a T-shirt. He would buy it for $1, try to sell it for $1.50, and then he saved and saved and saved and was able to open up his own factory in L.A. But I remember, he went through some tough times, and I have always been that guy where I said, you know what, I'm always going to take care of my parents. So, you kind of take care of the older generation, but yet, you have to reach down to the younger generation and take care of your kids too. But I was never one of those kids that said, screw my parents. They never provided this, this, and this. So I'm not going to provide my kids this, this, and this. Like I want my kids just like you to have everything. But also, I take a step back and I always tell myself, look, my parents tried. Like they tried. They would give me everything today if they were able to. Sometimes it doesn't work out, but they tried. So for me to say I'm not going to take care of them because they didn't provide certain things for me was never in the question. We're fortunate enough now where, we're able to take care of my parents. We support Christina's parents financially. Um, so that has always been a thing. But the great question, because I 100% think that it is our obligation as children to live a better life because the parents gave up everything that they had. So I took it as a goal of mine, not only for my family to live well, but for us to be able to take care of them, but also our children, right? My kids have a big advantage over me and my wife when we were their age. So they are expected to live a better life. And I'm not looking for anything in return because we don't need anything in return from them, but I want them to have an expectation of they need to do more. They can't count on mommy and daddy.
and I think that's the ultimate hustle because in the end of the day, I, something that I think you were getting at that I just want to drill down a little bit on is that the previous generation, that those first generation of immigrants, for me, it's a generation, my grandparents and then my mother, but they got us from 0 to 60.
Mm,
So anything that when you say, they did their best, I think they did more than their best, if you
yeah,
ask me, because the snowball that they sent down the mountain, we already had the momentum,
right.
right? Meaning they you whatever age you came here, how old were you when you came to America?
5.
5. So you already obviously knew a different language, but learning the language at 5 is a lot different than learning at 45.
Right.
So that kind of stuff, that momentum, I also think is part of that. I don't want to say pressure, but there's a certain amount of, if they gave up so much for us to be here and they took that leap
Yeah.
and they pushed through actually selling a t-shirt, then I can, whoever, if I need to work a minimum wage job to make it happen, I know I can get that. And I'm a citizen, so I can get benefits that they couldn't get when they got here and all that stuff. So it's like, how difficult could it be when it's the most difficult? And I'm not saying that those difficult moments in all of our lives are not challenging. And you certainly know about those, but it's still not that first level.
That's right. Yeah, I don't think it could be. I can't think of any tougher situation than me having to pick up my family, move to a different country, and not know the language. I mean, talk about pressure. So I respect and I admire immigrant families so much because they literally are doing it for their kids, so that and they're not going to see the fruits of it. They're not going to see the benefits of it, but they're doing that for the generations behind them. Because what I've always said, this one generation has to pay the price. You have to pay the price. And in a way, in a big way, my parents did it, but also, financially, it didn't happen for their kids. Like they're not leaving an inheritance for their kids. So I took that as the second part, in that Christina and I have to build something now. We have to pay the price of starting from scratch, of eating ramen for dinner, doing all the little things, to maybe continue on that financial legacy for the kids. So we had to pay the price. And I'm happy to do that so that our kids don't have to.
And and I think that when they see that or when they hear that, and I one thing that I think is getting lost, and I hope it doesn't get lost, and I know with you it certainly doesn't, is a lot of people are not telling the stories of that previous generation. And I
Mm,
know that obviously my kids are younger than your kids, but at a certain point, it's our obligation to say, you don't realize this, but a short time ago, your grandparents came here with literally the shirt on their back.
yeah.
And that doesn't mean that you have to feel bad or guilty or anything like that, but that's the next generation's responsibility, because as you said, there's always a price to pay for that. And building makes my father, he should rest in peace, always used to say that he was born in the wrong generation. And
Which generation should it be?
so he looked at me and he looked at me and my siblings and said that he was born in the wrong generation. And my joke to him, when he thankfully, literally from being a messenger on the streets of Lower Manhattan at age 16, 17, 18, or peeling shrimp, to taking his most of his grandchildren to Disney World, in a moment that I know he appreciated. In Disney World, I looked at him and I said, "Nah, I was also born in the wrong generation. These kids haven't made." But I think, but they will learn about the sacrifices, and I think that that should hopefully inspire them to hustle. That doesn't mean I think you're right. I, I don't ever want my kids to eat ramen for dinner.
Mm,
I've never had to do that, but I would assume coming from you, and I want to hear more about that as well, because that's probably a big part of your hustle. Even though you want your kids to be challenged and to push themselves, I would guess one of your goals in life is that your kids should never have to eat ramen on a Friday night.
yeah, yeah. And Aaron, I we are so blessed, because we're at a point now where Christina and I, if we want to go out to dinner, we can. If we're out to dinner and the kids want to go shopping, buy some jeans or shoes, we can. Um, and I've never been that parent where, if I'm able to do something for my kids, I want to, because that's the whole reason why we work hard. You know, I'm not that parent that says, well, I didn't have it, so you can't have it, or you need to work for this. Um, but also, what I think the deeper message is that the kids also see and appreciate what we've been through, because we do share with them. They do listen to our podcast, and they definitely do know our story. And I think they have a deeper appreciation of, some of the things that they get to do. But also, what was really nice is my daughter is going to be 18 next week, and she's in college now. And she transferred, or she switched her major to business, but she is so focused on saving money. One of her goals is, in the next couple of years, she wants to buy a condo out here. Um, and I know, and I taught them what a ledger looks like, and, debit, credit, how to balance a checkbook, probably when they were maybe 6 or 7 years old. And it's on an Excel, and they've always maintained that. And I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but I do know for a fact that my parents didn't teach me that. And
They were too busy trying to figure out, not in a bad way, right? But they didn't have they were thinking, what about tomorrow? Not ledger, and
exactly,
not
exactly.
what Daniel going to do in college. They're like, how are we going to feed Daniel to make sure that he's old enough to go to college one day?
That's right. But being the next generation after them, you pick up on things that, hey, well, I wish I learned this when I was younger. So that's why we teach the next generation. So it's really good to see that, if she's a homeowner when she's 22, well, what's the rest of her path look like? And she wants to be a business owner, and she wants to, go into a few other things. So that's really cool to see that the next generation is actually thinking about things like that earlier than when we thought about them.
So that brings me to my next question. When you talk about raising the next generation or how you kept hustling, you mentioned eating ramen not by choice but by need,
Mhm.
uh, and now you're have the podcast or two podcasts, uh, running the Song Life family. We get to see a lot of it. What was that pivotal moment where things either you took a crazy leap of faith and bet on yourself, or you saw that leap of faith pay off and said, "This is where my hustle meets the road"?
Well, it was a real defining moment for us, and this is when we were deep in it. When I had my fourth daughter, because we have four kids in 5 years, and my with my fourth daughter being born, I had $200 in my pocket, and it was a real dark time for us. And knowing that you're supposed to provide, knowing that I say to people, out of the billions of people out there, your wife chose you. Out of billions of people.
Tell us
So,
about that. Did she know? Did she know about how? Do you think she knew? Because you talk about how you had this pressure to provide and looking at it and kind of seeing the road ahead. Did she know that she was how deep the water was that she was going to be treading in? Do you
well,
think?
no, I don't think any of us did. Now, we have a great relationship and we communicate every minute of the day. So she knew exactly how bad it got. And in fact, she came home one time and told me she sold her wedding ring because I bought us 2 more
Wow.
months of groceries. But, so out of billions of people, she chose you. And I took that to heart because when I told her to marry me, I said, just follow me. I'll give you everything that you ever want in life. I said, just follow me. And that's why we got married. And at a certain point in my marriage, I wasn't fulfilling that promise to her because my ego, my work ethic, whatever it was, it just wasn't happening. I had $200 in my pocket and that was it. And we've moved around so much, running away from rent. So I remember we were on food stamps, we were on welfare, and she goes to the grocery store. I never went to the grocery store with her with those food stamps because I was embarrassed. She comes home and she says, with the groceries, and she says, "Oh, I ran into so and so in line," and it just clicked. I said, "Wait, you paid with groceries or food stamps, and you obviously paid for it because you have the groceries here." I said, "Did that person see you pay with food stamps?" And she said, "Well, yeah, they were right behind me. They saw the coupons and everything or the card." And I got so upset with her. And I didn't talk to her for about a week because she made me look bad. And again, it was my ego. And after about a week, she comes to me and she said, "Daniel, why would I be embarrassed about using food stamps to pay for our kids?" And she said, "This isn't where we are staying. It's something that we're going through." And when she said that, it hit me like a box of bricks. And what she was really saying was, she believes in me so much that she's not embarrassed about where we are now because of the place that we're going. And that was a real aha moment for me that this person would believe in me that much to get us out of this. And that's where when I started getting to work. I worked 2 jobs during the day. I worked a graveyard shift at night. And we really, I in the first 5 years of the business, I took 7 days off. I worked every Sunday, and we hustled, and we hustled together. I was never really home, but I did see the kids every night. And she would go to church on Sundays, and people thought she was a single mom raising 5 kids. But we communicated and we stuck together, and that's the biggest blessing, I think, Aaron, is that out here in Orange County in California, the divorce rate used to be 70%. Now it's about 73%. And a majority of that is because of finances. But with the finance troubles, our marriage got stronger. We prayed every night together. We cried every night together. And it was, and we were young. We were in our mid, late 20s or late 20s. So when I look at kids now in their 20s, I'm like, they're kids. So we were just lost, man. We didn't have parents that could support us. We really had to figure it out. And then, I used to get upset. I used to think life was unfair because I have friends who, their parents, when they get married, they buy them a house. When they want to start a business, their parents give them money to start a business and just give, everything's handed to them, right? Where here we are, Christina and I, we're fighting to stay alive, but yet, it's like we're doing everything for our parents, but there's instead of feeling jealous, there's so much um, love, and there's so much comfort in that we're taking care of, who we're supposed to take care of. And I told Christina, I said, once we lost our home or foreclosed on our house, and there's no other feeling than ever having to take your kids out of the home that they were raised in or born in. But it's four walls, right? And we can get another four walls later. But communication is super important.
Did your parents know the struggle that you were going through?
It was interesting because um, they never really knew at the time. They didn't know at the time. I remember one time I called my mom when it was really bad, and I said, can I have some money? Can I borrow some money? And they were struggling too, and I didn't want to ask them, but I did ask them. And then you know, she went home and told my dad, and I guess my dad just started crying because he realized how bad it got. Um, so that's when they kind of knew, uh, but they still didn't know. But after we came out of it, now they know. Yeah.
Do, do you think that it's possible that the Daniel who I know and I can say I love as a brother is the person he is today without that extreme moment of desperation hustling?
Aaron, I don't think I would be the same person. Um, the good Lord really humbled me because, when I was in my early 20s, I got into the mortgage business. And I tell this story, you know, I had my own brokerage, but, I would make personal sales too. In 1 month commission, I made 100,000, the next month 75, the next month 50. So in a quarter, I was 24 years old. In one quarter, I made $225,000 with my own pen. That's not even the business. Oh, my ego was so huge, man. Oh, I would do things on purpose just so that people could see me in my car. I would park it in a certain situation at church. I would buy certain clothes. It was just nonsense. And my ego, but not coming from money, not having any money, I didn't know how to handle money. For definitely without being humbled and the things that we went through, there's no way I would be the person I am today. It just my ego was so big. It was really not healthy.
And isn't it amazing when we talk about hustling in general that everybody afterwards looks at it and says, "Oh yeah, I this is what made me," and these are, not to borrow a country music cliche, but God bless the broken road. There's a broken road that leads us all to our ultimate destination or where we are today. But I find it amazing that Christina, especially, and maybe this should be a question for her in the future, but had the foresight to say, I I see you're a hustler. We keep hustling now, and I know we're not going to be here. And maybe, by the way, it's possible that, and I'm not speaking for her, but it's possible that she was like, I just got to do something, so I got to build this guy up. But you
Yeah,
have to
no,
believe that
great
you
point.
have to. But it worked, right? And
Yeah,
together, you know, that's probably you talk about super high divorce rates, and we have the same thing in New York. And um, obviously, the communities that we're in and what our families stress about the importance of, and I'm not saying that anyone should stay in a marriage that's terrible or abusive or anything like that. And I don't think you're saying that either. But I think that the people that run from challenges
mm,
and that ultimately breaks them or breaks their marriage don't realize that they have to get through the challenges. You have to hustle because otherwise you won't make it actually make it
yeah,
and survive. And if you're able to make it together with a partner in life or in business or friends, then those relationships are impossible to break. Impossible. And doesn't it make it that much sweeter on the back end?
it so does. And having so I met Christina when I was 21, she was 20. Well, my daughter's 18. So to think that she would meet her future husband in 2 years is just mind-boggling. But Christina and I, we want all of our kids to get married young, because rather than rather than going into a marriage where the spouse is providing everything, we would so much rather have them get married young and build it together. There is so much value in doing that. But I agree with you. Working things out to get together, and I almost feel a little embarrassed for people because as an adult, you should realize that hey, you can work through it together, and working together, oftentimes you get out of things much faster. But if you call the relationship quits because you run into some hurdles, as if you're not going to run into any hurdles with the next relationship,
Or in
right?
life, or in life.
Exactly.
What the values that I believe, and I agree with you on, people who get married younger get to experience more of life together.
Mm,
And if we agree that no one's ever perfect and that Aaron in my seat and Daniel in your seat are still a work in progress, then there would never be a perfect person to be a spouse for someone else, and your spouse can never be perfect to you for you. So you might as well learn together. But it's if you wouldn't quit on your career and you wouldn't quit on a passion that you have, how can you quit so easily on a relationship and on a marriage that's built for challenges?
yeah.
Right? Marriages are not about my father. He should rest in peace. Always used to say, uh, he joked with, I think my siblings also, but he definitely said this to me when I was getting married. Like, it's cute. You say, I love you to Michelle, to your spouse, but you don't know. You don't know what love is. You don't
Yeah.
know what love is. You guys are
Sure.
planning a wedding, looking
Sure.
at dresses and, you know, dishes for your apartment. You don't know what love is. When the first crisis comes, not that we wish crisis on anyone, but it's those moments that are like when you have that first health challenge or the challenge with finances or the challenge with parents or the challenge with illness or illness inside or outside the family, or that's when love is really developed. So it's almost comical to say like the 21-year-old Daniel looking at the 20-year-old Christina. You're like, those kids didn't know what they were. Not only did they not know what they were doing, they didn't even know how much they would love each other or care for each other.
Yeah.
As kind of when you look at the movie now.
Well, I tell Christina, I tell people, we're kids raising kids still. We still haven't figured it out. But Aaron, I love what you said because there's the relationship gets deeper and deeper, right? Now, you're gonna agree with me on this. When you meet somebody new for the first time, like another parent, another, and they find out how long you guys have been married, and when they find out that you have 5 kids, it's almost like, oh, okay, like these guys, they know what they're doing, or like I don't need to give with my 1 or 2 kids. I don't need to give them advice. Like they're deep in this parenthood. They know exactly. They're veterans type of thing, right? Don't you get that?
100%, and they have no idea that some nights, like Michelle and I, we look at each other and we're like, "What are we doing?" We
Yeah,
have no idea. Like my, obviously your oldest is older than mine, but my oldest is 12, and she's gaining more independence and doing the things like that. And every once in a while, I look at Michelle and I'm like, "Remember when we had one kid who could just put in her crib
yeah,
and like she just rolled over, and our biggest problem was that like she cried too much or her pacifier fell out." And now it's like it's funny because you're right. People say, "Oh, you have it figured out," but let's be honest with each other. Two friends here. No one's listening anyway. We have no idea what we're doing. Zero, zero.
yeah. And you use this word, and I really wish they would do away with the word perfect. I mean, what's perfect? There is nothing in this world that is ever perfect, right? So, and especially a perfect marriage. Oh my gosh, there is no such thing. And I don't know even if there was a perfect marriage, I wouldn't know what that looks like,
It,
right?
it definitely doesn't look like living on a beach with no challenges ever coming
Yeah,
your way.
because so much love comes out of having disagreements, right? You learn so much about that person, about maybe having an argument or just going through some things. Um, so yeah, no
I
such.
might be, I might be botching the quote, but I think it's from Alex Hermosi, who I'm a big fan of. I think he said in an interview once that if you were building the ideal human, how would you build them? And his point was, and he followed up by saying, you wouldn't build them living uh, with all the money in the world on a beach with no problems. You would put them through challenges because that's how people develop character and relationships are born and things come out of that. And I think that there's something profound in that because in the end of the day, we're made up of our experiences. And if we didn't have that, if we didn't have those moments of what am I going to do or how am I going to get through this, then it wouldn't even be as I can't even imagine what life would be like. So when you talk about a marriage, it's the same thing, or a family. We're not perfect. Our kids are not
Yeah.
perfect. But those life experiences that we go through, and it's it's part of why I started this podcast because I think that very often people have this idealized vision of their friends, colleagues, family, or people that they see just from the outside. And everybody has a story. And
Yeah.
everybody has those moments that they need to hustle through. Some more difficult than others. And some people's paths are rockier or challenging or filled with more challenges than others. But especially young people, I think, need to hear the stories of the people who did it before them. So I
Mm.
want to get back to, I want to press you on one point, and that is you said after the moment in the grocery store, you made a decision that you had to make a change.
Yeah.
So what was that decision and what did you do at that moment to push through it?
Well, I think I just got, I got recommitted in a way, and it really encouraged me that somebody else would believe in me so much. And that's when I told you I got, I got two jobs during the day. I got the graveyard shift at night. So I would go out and build the insurance business from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then also in between there work another job. And then, but I would make sure to be home around 6. So from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., I would eat dinner, play with the kids. And then from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m., I would take a 2 hour nap. And then at 10 o'clock, Christina would wake me up because I would drive to my 11 p.m. graveyard shift. So from 11 p.m. to 7:30 a.m., I would work at a home alarm company. And if your alarm goes off in the middle of the night, you get a phone call. So I was dispatched. So I did that. 7:30, I would get off and drive home, eat breakfast, take a shower, and go build the insurance business. And the insurance industry was perfect for me because coming from mortgages, money came pretty quickly. I mean, you could sell one loan and make $20,000. But insurance was great. Now, I didn't know a single soul in insurance. And I just thought, well, just like everybody else who gets into it, yeah, everybody needs it, right? By law, you have to have it. So I said, okay, let me try it. But I would sell a homeowner's policy and make $50 commission. But the consistency and just there is such a big barrier for people who want to make it a real career. I mean, 5 years of hustle, of laser focus hustle, not just kind of putting my toes in it. I was all in. Work came first. I remember I would, after a 10-hour day, I would come home, take off my shoes, sit down for dinner, and then I would get buzzed to go out again. So it was just one of those things, but I would love doing it because I saw progress. I saw the money starting to come in. I saw that Christina was getting excited. We weren't, and it took a little while for us not to be on food stamps anymore, right? But you see these small little wins. I remember, I was able to go on my first vacation with the kids. So living in Orange County, we drove up to San Francisco. It was about a 7-hour car ride. But I remember evidence of insurance request came in because one of my clients was in escrow. So I had to pull over on the freeway, get the laptop out. I'm sitting on the driver's seat. I send out evidence of insurance, right? So still very focused. And I would just put an out of office reply saying, hey, I'm in a meeting. I'll get back to you in a few hours versus, I'm out of town type of thing. But, it was but once I planted my flag, it was planted. I couldn't take it back out. Like I knew this was it for me. And I didn't have a plan B, which is silly because you should always have a plan B, right? Some say, but I
Not
planted
me.
my
I
flag.
disagree.
I was going to make this work. Whether it killed me or not, I was going to make this work. And luckily enough, it has worked.
I don't want to give you too much credit, but I would venture to say that you said that what kept you going was the fact that Christina believed in you, and that inspired your hustle.
That's right.
But I have to believe that the Christina who was at the time, I think, was mother of 4 children, right?
Yeah.
Your son was born after this thing, right?
He was born at the start of the uptick. Like it started getting better, but it wasn't good. But yeah,
But I'm saying, but so the Daniel who was working the 3 jobs had 4 kids.
that's
And
right.
I have to believe that when Christina would see you come home for 2 hours,
Mm,
somehow, by the way, one day we're going to have to talk about that offline, how on God's good earth you were able to pull it together and play with your kids after that. But well, that's not for now. And saw this guy who, yes, she believed in from the beginning, but who was literally, when she woke you up after those 2 hours, she actually saw you get up and go to work.
mm,
It has to, it, I have to believe that you inspired her hustle and her to say, this is going to work out. Because if you didn't plant your flag and she didn't see that seriousness, then who says that she would have been able to do what she was doing on the home front? Because something inside me, and this gets back to our conversation about relationships, says that she saw the guy who was working the 3 jobs, and what she was doing at home, you and I both agree, was equally, if not more important than what you or I were doing outside the home.
that's right.
But she still had to hustle because on Sunday she was going to church by herself.
Yeah.
And if she didn't see you hustling the way you were, then maybe she would have not been able to push through that. So I think it's one of these both people benefit. Iron sharpens iron, that
Yeah.
everybody is pushing in the same direction.
Yeah.
And then you get to see the success.
Well, and also to your point, like I knew I was very focused at work because I didn't have to worry about the house. And she was very focused at home raising the kids because she knew that I was out there hustling. Great point. But also you brought up something, man. And nobody really thinks about this. So later after we were through it, she shared it with me. She said, waking me up at 10 o'clock was the hardest thing she ever did. And it almost makes me a little emotional when I think about this because I haven't said this too much, and this is just all coming back. Um, she said, because I would get in the car, open the garage, I would reverse out of the garage, right? She said, watching me go to my 11 p.m. graveyard shift was one of the hardest things she ever had to do. And she said she didn't sleep well at night, knowing that I was out there at 2 a.m. getting minimum wage, like working, right? So she said, when I would sleep from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. for those 2 hours, she said, waking me up at 10 o'clock was one of the hardest things she ever had to do.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And now she has to wake up 4 daughters and a son. So I'm sure
Yeah.
that's not pleasant either.
Yeah.
Is there anything you would change?
Hmm. When I look at it, it's like, yeah, I wish we didn't go through those hard times. Um, but those hard times is really what built, that was the sticky glue to our relationship, I think. And I didn't like the person that I was when I wasn't struggling. I love the person that I am after struggling because I am such a better person. And the fact that I came out of it has inspired many, but
Myself
also,
included.
thank you. But also, Aaron, I don't think I don't think I made it out for me and Christina. I think God has a bigger plan. And I know for a fact that my kids will go through something one day. So for me to be able to recognize, and they don't have to tell me, as parents, we have this intuition about our kids, the way they smile, the way they don't smile, the way they say things. I'm gonna be able to identify those things and and share with them, hey, this is kind of what daddy and mommy went through. So,
And it didn't break us.
and it
And it
didn't
made
break,
us stronger.
yeah, and it made us stronger. So it has helped our lives um, in so many ways where we probably don't even realize.
I have to believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but standing where you are today, and thank you for sharing this with all of us. This is what this podcast is about, so it means the world to have you here. Is when challenges come, you have to be able to say, and Christina together can say, this isn't going to break us. No way. This is nothing compared to the
Right.
day before that, a week before that supermarket trip.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's almost, and I didn't mean to put you on the spot with the regret question or changing anything, but it's almost like, how could we want to change things that inspired our hustle?
Mm,
Because then what videotape would you have to look at if those things didn't happen?
exactly.
So
Exactly. I tell people, cause Aaron, I dropped out of college. I dropped out, never got an MBA or anything like that. But man, the things that I learned on the streets, right? That is so much more powerful and useful than a diploma. So I 100% agree with you.
you know what I find amazing about this conversation? We've been on here for 40 minutes, and I don't know why this just hit me. You brushed over the fact that you enlisted in the Marine Corps. And what's amazing to me is that all of these challenges that you went through afterwards, that had to have the fact that you did that and developed the skills and, dare I say, grit and hustle when you were there, that had to play a part too.
Huge, huge. I mean, the things I learned in the core is, you just can't get that anywhere else. And it's like you're almost a little psycho. And Aaron, like I'm just like you. Like when I put my mind to something, like I want to hit that goal. And in the very beginning of insurance month, that first year, I had a goal for myself, but I this is nuts, and I can't believe I'm sharing this, but Aaron, when I didn't hit my sales goals, like every month, I would imagine as if somebody was had a gun to my kid's head, and
Wow.
if I didn't hit my goals, it would be bad. Like that's the place that where I was. I was in a place of desperation, anxiety. Like I had to make it work. But the sucky thing about insurance is like you sell a home policy this month, dude. You might not get paid if you sell it on the first of the month. You don't get paid until 45 days later, right? Next month.
Right.
So
Everybody loves to talk about residual income, but you got to get to the point where it becomes residual.
exactly. So that's why I worked three jobs: the graveyard shift to give me instant money now, the insurance to build something for the future, but also that second job to give me something now too. So yeah, yeah. But no, the Marine Corps is absolutely one of the best things I ever did. It was awesome.
Daniel, you are the living embodiment of Keep Hustling. And I am so grateful that you came and shared some of your story with us. I have to ask before we go, your favorite, most inspirational quote that guides your hustle or inspires you when you need to pick me up.
Yeah, I have a lot. One of my most favorite ones, because this one hits on all age levels. I always tell my kids, and kids is tough because I have four teenage girls. So, they're doing the cool thing. I mean, it's just, it's kids, right? High school. It's like, I tell them, time will either promote you or expose you. And, Christina and I, we are not the loudest. We are like, in fact, we kind of, our style is we just kind of sit back a little bit. Um, but if you have things going on, you don't always need to share it with everybody. You know, if people are gossiping about somebody, you don't need to chime in, right? And I think the person that you are will always be promoted or exposed in time. So that's why you don't have to try too hard in the present, because it will come out.
That's absolutely incredible. I know that our listeners are going to want to hear more from you. So I have to tell them that if you want to hear more of Daniel's story, hear more from Christina, please check out their podcast, which is the Song Life Podcast. I know I've learned from the episodes. It's part of what's inspired me to go on this journey of the Keep Hustling podcast. Daniel and I have discussed that sometimes we've cried listening to the episodes, and he's made those episodes. And you can also catch Daniel on the Insurance Buttoned Up podcast, which has more of a professional spin. But Daniel Seong, thank you for being here.
Aaron, I love you, brother. We're gonna see you guys soon in January.
I look forward to welcoming you in New York. This is Aaron Gordon, your host. Thank you for joining us on The Hustle, allowing us to inspire your hustle. Remember, do well by doing good, and of course, always keep hustling. All right, hustlers, that brings us to the end of another fantastic episode. Thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. If you have any suggestions, comments, or even just want to say hello, please feel free to reach out to us on all social media platforms. We are Keep Hustling Pod. Until next time, stay curious, stay hungry, and keep hustling.